Carrol Harding McTyre was born in Richmond, Virginia, but has spent more than 40 years in Memphis and is finally ready to call herself a Tennessean. And we will certainly count you as a Memphian by now. She graduated from the University of Memphis with her BFA in 2001. She has been included in multiple exhibitions, including Uncommon Threads at Cornell University, the Surratt Gallery at Vanderbilt University, Flying Solo in Nashville Arts in the Airport. She's completed commissions for the Downtown Memphis Commission and Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, and recently completed a residency with Crosstown Arts. Here is how she describes her work. In 1969, Betty Crocker and Donald Judd had an affair. Their brief but significant union produced one child, me. Like any offspring, I have absorbed certain characteristics from parents, and those traits tend to manifest themselves in my work. My work, this is of course in Carol's words and not mine. My work is object-based and idea-driven. The material, the size, the imagery all follow. My approach is a clean visual organization with a sampling of American kitsch and is seriously playful and occasionally humorous. My intent is to meander in and out of the human experience, creating work that takes a sociological perspective. So please help me welcome Carrol McTyre.
Hi, so again, thank you for showing up today. I think we'll just get right to it. I've put together a little presentation that kind of explains a little bit about my practice and how I approach the work, and then we'll go from there. Sound good? All right, so. All right, push a few buttons here. Here we go. Welcome to the Dixon's Munch and Learn series. I'm Carrol Harding McTyre, and I'm going to share with you today a little bit about my art practice. So I think of myself as a sculptor, even though the work is sometimes flat and sometimes not even sculpture, but my first instinct is always to construct. So even when I'm working on a drawing or a collage, I do think of myself as building the image. I work with a lot of different mediums in my own art practice. I think some of that is rooted in my childhood and how I was exposed to art making. So from the time I was 7, well into my early teens, at the beginning of every summer, my mother would take my siblings and I to the store and some type of craft or art kit, and that was our project for the summer. So we tried a little bit of everything, right? Needlepoint, cross stitch, latch hook, rock polishing, wood burning, plaster casting, lots and lots of kind of paint by numbers. I suspect that a lot of other kids of the 70s probably had similar experiences, but for me, it was a really kind of wonderful way to spend my summer. It created a real curiosity about materials, but it also taught me the material had purpose, right? So here's an example. If I'm 9 years old and I need to make myself a wallet, well, I'm definitely going to pull out my leather tooling kit. You know, I fast forward several years and I'm working on a project where I've got this family of logs and I want them to feel protected and insulated. You know, how do I do that? Well, knitting them sweaters, you know, seems like the perfect logical, you know, way to illustrate. So what you're going to see in my work is that the material is always going to be dictated by the idea behind the piece. A web lawn chair gives off kind of a specific feeling, right? It hints at a location, a time of year, even a type of event. It might even suggest a specific era. And that's what I like to do as an artist. I'm an object maker that makes objects of objects. I like taking something real and making it unreal. I'm interested in how an object can create a dialogue with the viewer. So I take advantage of the fact that the viewer already has an association with the object, and I allow it to generate this vocabulary. So think of objects as being the nouns, and then in the work, I try to leave enough room for others to kind of fill in the verbs and adjectives, and that creates the story. So I like it when you can tell that the parts of a piece belong together, but they're not quite aligning. So, let's say there's a piece with text in it, but it's not super legible. You've got to really work for it, to read it, or maybe you never even quite are able to read it. And again, it just goes back to that idea of leaving a little room for the viewer. Teaching is this really heavy-handed label that attaches to every aspect of your life. So that then every story that comes out about you once you join the teaching profession is prefaced with this moniker, right? So teacher wins lottery, teacher perishes in tragic skiing accident. So what is currently happening in the studio is a series that I'm working on, and it explores a couple of things. So I'm looking at how my art practice and my teaching practice have overlapped and influenced one another. But I'm also looking at teaching as a profession, exploring where it's succeeding, looking at where it's lacking, and then also looking at what are the demands that are put on educators within today's society. So the series includes some large scale sculptures, some small sculptures, large scale collages. Also taken my middle school yearbook and painted it. The goal is to finish the series by the end of the next school year, so May 2021, and at which time I hope to have a solo show showcasing that work. I'd like to thank the Dixon for inviting me to share with you today. I enjoyed spending some time with you. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Okay, so that's a little bit about my practice and what I'm currently working on. And anybody have any questions, comments?
So we had a couple of questions and they're from me. And so I want other people to ask some questions too, but I'm always interested with artists, at what point artists sort of label themselves as an artist. When do you start calling yourself an artist? And I know it's different for everyone. And so, so when did you start seeing yourself as being an artist?
It was probably like in college before I would ever have used that term, right? I actually felt a little nervous about calling myself an artist, even though I kind of always made stuff. So I think back to even like Miss Fisher's second grade class. If you wanted somebody to draw something, you either asked me or Kim Miller, right? And then I did art all through high school. It was my major in college, and I never considered majoring in anything else. But the Greeley Myatt, who I know a lot of people with the Memphis connection have a Greeley story, Greeley connection. He called me an artist one day in class. And it was probably just a off the cuff kind of comment, but it was like what I needed to hear from somebody that I respected. And it showed me, you know, the power of language from a teacher to a student. It showed me, like I thought to be an artist, I had to be really talented. I thought to be an artist, I had to have a huge body of work to kind of back that up. It also kind of showed me that to call yourself an artist, it's not about talent or work or, you know, the end product. It's about intent. So it was really after his class that I felt comfortable kind of calling myself an artist. And that was, I kind of went back to college. So I was probably late 20s before I really would have called myself an artist. That was a good question, Lindley.
Well, thank you. And Danielle Sumler has a good question. She says, how did you create that stack of paper coming out of the wall?
So there's an armature underneath it, and then all the paper just, you know, slides on the armature, and then just a lot of drawing lines after line. You know, I'd sit in a faculty meeting, you know, or I'd sit in front of the television and you just, you know, make the paper. Right. So, you know, you have a little stack of notepads, and, you know, you write a note, you rip it off, you write a note, you rip it off. And so at the end of the year, teaching's weird. At the end of the year, you have to take everything in your classroom and remove it from the classroom, right? So not even a pencil, an eraser, anything, it's sitting there. And so at the end of the year, there would be this big bit left over from the notepad, and it kind of made just this really beautiful texture. And so that piece is kind of inspired by, you know, what your little notepad looks like at the end of the school year. So. Thanks, Danielle.
You're muted, Lindley.
Thank you. I clicked unmute, but it must not have taken me seriously. Okay, so one question is, tell us about Waffle House Art Series and what inspired it.
Well, waffles. Right. So I'm going to share my screen for a second, Lindley. Let's see. So the Waffle House series, it started through teaching as well. I was trying to explain to my AP students like what a series is. How do you produce a body of work based on one idea? And so I started making these paintings of the Waffle House. And so then, you know, at the end of it, I had a dozen or so little paintings, and I think, what am I going to do with these? And people love the Waffle House. Like, there's like this cult following, you know, of this place and this location. And so I decided, you know, I wanted to share that with other people. And so what I would do, let me click on one, is I would take these paintings, and they're really quite small, like 9 by 7. And they're just on cheap little canvases. And then I would go leave them in a Waffle House. So you can see this one is kind of stuck on the wall. Does everybody see that? A little Waffle House. And this, my little art buddies went and helped me install that. That's Mary Jo Coremia and Jennifer Sargent and Mary Kay Van Giesen's daughter. And so I would just, you know, go around town and leave a painting. And for most of them, I don't know what happened to them. I do know one cute little story. Let me see if I can find this image. I think it's this one. So here's the install shot. So this is a Waffle House up in the Nashville area, and my brother lives up there. And so he went with me to help, you know, kind of leave the painting. And like, I don't ask for permission or anything. I just kind of use some contact strips and hook it to the wall. But he went back and asked what, you know, where the painting was. And one of the waitresses had taken it. She kind of immediately, like, it wasn't even up for 24 hours before she took it. And she had like this little shrine, so to speak, at her house that she went and added it to her Waffle House collection. I thought that was really kind of a cute story, but most of them I don't know where they are. I don't know what happens to them. So, but that's the Waffle House series. Every once in a while, I'll make a new one, and you know, if I'm traveling somewhere, I'll go leave it.
So someone else wants to know how your art has been impacted by the pandemic.
I think, you know, a lot of artists just keep on working, right? So, you know, you can go to your studio by yourself and that kind of thing. So, but 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, I actually moved into a new house and so new studio space. And so I kind of took a little bit of time just to take advantage of kind of setting things up. And I did use, and I saw other artists doing, they would do like a 30-day challenge, you know, right? We're all supposed to stay at home. And so they would do a different piece every day. So I don't quite work like that, where I work fast enough to kind of do a piece every day. But I did make my own little quarantine challenge that I hadn't really shared with too much, but what I would do is as I unpacked, I found all these parts of pieces that never kind of got resolved, but I keep packing these pieces up and moving them from house to house or studio to studio, and all the pieces felt precious. So they were either like an expensive material, or they were left over from a project and I really enjoyed making the project, or maybe I felt angst about not resolving the project. And so I just couldn't get rid of them. And so the challenge is to take two pieces and two parts of two pieces and combine them so they feel like one new thing. That makes sense. So anyways, I've got about 3 done and a couple in the works. And then the goal is kind of like I'll work on it until I just don't want to work on it anymore. And then whatever didn't get used, I have to throw it away. So that, you know, because all those little parts, they're just taking up space literally in my studio, but also mentally they take up space. And they just, you know, helps you to kind of move on. So.
Well, this talk was originally called Fat Sketchbooks. And so Paula said that she would like to see one of your sketchbooks. Do you have one of your sketchbooks close by?
So this is one. So I like a big sketchbook. This is about 11 by 14. And when you open it up, let's see what I'm opening up to. That's not a very exciting page, but like it's like a huge piece of paper when you open it up. But you know, it's not, to me, it's not finished until you can't shut it anymore. And then you'll see in the sketchbook, like there's stuff for work, right? So stuff I'm doing with my classes. You know, this was a little prompt for my students. I don't know what can be seen on the screen. You know, they had to draw a local politician, a state politician, a national politician, and an international or global kind of politician. You know, and so they're little prompts that I'll do in class, but then you'll also see, let's see. Just kind of working out ideas for different sculptures, you know, writing stuff down before you forget it. But it's also, like I usually try to, like I'll do one a year. And so anything that kind of happened that year that has some kind of relevance, it gets glued and collaged in here. And so it's also like a yearbook, so to speak. You know, I can always go reference that. So anyways, fat sketchbooks. And these are, like I've worked a long time to really find a great way to get students to use sketchbooks in the classroom, because they love them, but they don't quite, but they don't know how to get in it. So I kind of have this great little practice that I do with my students, and I've shared that at the Tennessee Art Ed Association and the National Art Ed Association as well. So yeah, love sketchbooks. Thanks, Paula.
Well, you kind of covered, we had one question about the Waffle House pieces, which you kind of covered, where you don't know where they are, but there's a second part to that question. How many pieces do you work on at once, or does it vary?
I usually have several pieces going at one time, you know, at least two, but there's probably usually about 5 pieces going at any one time. And sometimes it's just trying to figure it out. You need a little minute, right? Like you'll hang something up and it's in progress and you just need to look at it and think about it. And then sometimes it's about, you know, just waiting for like something's going to take a lot of time and you're just waiting for that studio time. Sometimes it's about, you know, a material and you need to go to the store and get a material. And so you just wait. So you go work on something else. So like currently I've got 2 things sitting in the studio.
So Laura Holterman notices that there's a lot of lined paper in your work. And so does that lined paper come from the teacher part of you, or what is the significance there?
Hi, Lauren. So I don't know the answer, Lauren. I do love notebook paper. And then again, because I'm an object maker, the work that I'm working on that, you know, is talking about education in general and teaching as a profession, you know, using notebook paper, it's a way object that takes you back to school, right? To that particular time period in your life. But also, like, as an artist, I'm really attracted to just the pattern that notebook paper makes. I'm kind of interested in that color palette as well, like the blue and that pink and how muted they are. So I'm interested in it aesthetically, but also as an object and where notebook paper takes you mentally. So I hope that, but like Lauren, I'll say, like I think I see the world in lines, right? Like and I know some people see the world in shapes, and some people may get what I'm saying. Some people are like, I don't know what she's saying, but like I look at where things intersect and I see those as linear. Like, so I think I am hardwired to kind of just think in a linear, you know, kind of pattern. So I don't know if that answered your question at all, Lauren, but yeah, thanks.
Well, Jeff Beal says, you mentioned how work and your art overlap and the pressures on teachers. Can you expand on that?
So it's, you know, it's interesting, like when you go to teach and and a large part of what I do is it's about teaching technical skills. So it really helps you kind of go, oh, maybe I do know how to do something. So having to teach technical skills from someone who doesn't consider herself a really strong technician or draftsman, it made me trust myself more in my own studio. Like I still today, when I do something and it looks decent, I think, oh, look what I did, right? Like I'm still, you know, just like a 7-year-old kid that's, you know, excited that I made an apple look like an apple. So I still get just as excited. So I think it gave me a little bit of trust. And then also like being an artist, I love being able to take something into the classroom and say, hey, this is what I was trying to do. And I'll show them where it failed. And for them to see that even a professional, you know, it takes multiple attempts to kind of get something right. And so we talk a lot about our goal is to just get better. And that's a goal that anybody at any kind of technical level can kind of master. So But I also find like if I'm drawing at home, I want my students to be drawing. If I'm painting at home, I want my students to be painting. So whatever I'm working on in the studio, I kind of want them to be doing the same thing. And then as far as education, I mean, I could probably talk for hours about that. It's a weird job being a teacher. So, I mean, just think about you're in a room with 30 teenagers and you have to convince them that what you want them to do is worth their while. And they really, they could mutiny at any minute and I couldn't do anything about it. So it's this bizarre job. Like think about most people's job is you're in a room with adults, but I'm in a room with, you know, people who aren't adult, like other people's children. Right. And so that's, you know, kind of this weird obligation to begin with. And then I think it's kind of one of the, it's a profession that and sometimes is treated unprofessionally. Like I feel like they don't always trust us to know what to do. And so it's a job where you have huge amount of autonomy because you're in a room with other people's children all day. But state and federal agencies are always trying to kind of put their nose in it, and sometimes they have zero experience of what that job is like. So, but it's also, that sounded really negative. It's also like this fantastic job. Like it's a job where knowledge and creativity and experimentation is really encouraged and honored, and to kind of do that all day is pretty enjoyable. So it's an interesting job to have. So the pandemic didn't make it less interesting.
No kidding. So I want to get to Elizabeth's question, but it looks like Margarita has her hand raised. Margarita, did you have a question? No? Okay. Well, then we'll get to Elizabeth's. Elizabeth says, Carol's sculptural work feels like drawings. And she would love to hear about what role drawing plays in your process.
You know, Elizabeth, I love drawing actually. And I think if I had something to say that drawing was the right tool for it, I would do nothing but draw. And so I guess my question for Elizabeth is why does she feel like it feels like a drawing? Is it because like sometimes the work it's kind of flat. But it might go back to what Lauren was talking about, that there is usually some linear quality in the work. So I don't know how to answer that question, Elizabeth.
Well, Lindley unmuted me, so I get to talk. It's because I can see your hand in it. Like the piece behind you, that it's curving down like that, it feels so by hand. Yes. And to me, it just feels like it relates to drawing a lot. So, you know, one of the things I thought about putting in the little presentation I made is like I'm interested in craft, but I'm not married to it. So I like it when it's a little imperfect, right? And even like the piece behind me, you know, even the shapes feel like lines, right? So I think it goes back to that, how I'm hardwired to just see lines. Mm-hmm. And so that just can't help but show up in the work. So yeah, thanks.
Well, Kevin wants to know what's caught your interest / inspired you recently. Instagram accounts, film or TV, music, etc.
Hi, Kevin. So Kevin, I feel like you would like this person too. I don't know if you follow them on Instagram, and I might grab my phone just to make sure I'm getting their name correct. Aaron. So it's a hashtag I follow on Instagram, ERIN WURM, Aaron Worm, and it's sculpture, but it's real conceptually based work. That I just, every time, it's that kind of work that you see it and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. You know, it's the work that you're jealous you didn't come up with it yourself. So, and then as far as TV and films, like I kind of haven't been watching anything except the news. And then sometimes I have to turn the news off. But yeah, that I would encourage all of you. And so they don't, it's just a hashtag I follow. I don't know that they actually have a account on Instagram, but ERINWURM, Aaron Worm. So yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Well, those are all the questions that that people typed in, but does anybody have any last questions? You should be able to unmute yourself. If you can't, then wave your hand or something and I'll unmute everyone. So yeah, if you have a question or anything, just unmute yourself and go for it.
Carrol, have you seen COVID art on Instagram?
I haven't seen COVID art. I've seen like people doing kind of a 30-day challenge, quarantine art. Is that the same thing, Janice, or is that something?
I don't know. Maybe it's COVID art museum, but it's like pictures or sculptures, but it's very intriguing. Some of it's really weird, and some of it's just, like one was two laptops facing each other on a table, and the arms were reaching out of the laptops to touch.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would like. And is it COVID, COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll check that out. I hadn't seen that.
Well, I have one more question. You said that you like to incorporate words and letters and make them so that they're challenging to read or sometimes impossible to read. So the pile of letters in the room, I was wondering, is that a pile of letters or does that actually say something? Did you pile those letters in a certain order to try to say something?
So if you categorize the letters, it says bad idea. And so, it would just, you could probably write that out like, I don't know, 7 times. And so one kind of bad idea for one and another one and another one. So it does say something if you put the letters together.
It is COVID Art Museum.
COVID Art Museum. Okay, awesome.
There's one of their pieces.
Oh yeah. All right, I will definitely go check that out. Thanks, Janice. Well, you got a question?
Hey. So, you were a resident in Crosstown. And, you have a studio in your house and I have a studio in my house. And I'm thinking, well, I have a studio. I don't know if I need to. Can you talk about the advantages of somebody who's, has a studio practice in their house and you feel pretty secure in that as far as like a space, and then the benefit of doing that, locals with studios applying for that residency?
So I can't say enough good things about the residency arts. So I do have a decent amount of people in my household, and so it's not uncommon for somebody to walk by or come in or so at Crosstown, I'm in this room and it was so quiet, and just to have to make art, like you need space and you need time and materials. But to me, I think we underestimate time, like that time to just sit and be alone with your thoughts. And like, I think we underestimate how often we're interrupted. And then, so you're having a thought and then you're interrupted, and then that thought never makes it all the way to the end. So, and in fact, I was there for maybe 6 weeks, and the first 2 weeks, I probably, like, I didn't turn on a podcast or the radio or, you know, Netflix or like there was no noise. And it really was fantastic for me to just, like, I don't know that I came out of there with amazing finished products, but I came out of there with a clarity of thought and kind of purpose that that I never would have gotten working at home. I would highly encourage it. And then also just to meet the artists that you get to meet. You know, there's local ones, but there's also people from, you know, all over the world that I would have met otherwise. So I could not recommend it enough, Melissa. And like, you apply, the worst thing that happens, you get a no, like, but I can't imagine they turn you down. So, but yeah, so I couldn't encourage it enough. So.
Does anyone else have any questions? Elizabeth, you're sketching us, aren't you?
There's one in the chat again now.
Oh, there's one in the chat. Oh, does your plan for returning to school in August look any different this year? Suggestions on waking the kids up to making art again after such a long break.
Hi, Reagan. I think, honestly, none of us know what August will look like for schools. I suspect 20% of them will be so excited to go back. I suspect 20% of them never want to go back. And I can't do math, but the other percentage will be glad they're there, but won't admit it, right? So, but you know, like in an art class, I usually don't have a hard time getting kids to be engaged because it's such a tactile, you know, analog kind of experience of making something. And we talk a lot about it at the beginning of the year. It's like, I don't care if it's really art, right? I just want you to make something. And I just want them to focus on process and don't worry about end product. And usually product takes care of itself if you just enjoy making the piece. And again, we go back to that all the time. I was like, your goal is to just get better. So if you stink, it's only uphill from here. And if you're already really talented, then, you know, this is the place to push yourself. So I hope it's normal class, full time, you know, every day, seeing every kid. It was, I was really, like, when we got an extra week of spring break, I was like, sweet, you know, but then when we didn't go back, I was really disappointed to get to kind of say goodbye to the students. And I had so many great projects I wanted them to work on. So I hope we go back to normal. Is that what you're thinking, Reagan? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I hope so. I miss their faces.
Yeah, I miss their face. I miss getting to make work with them and then the weird little conversations that happen, you know, while you're making stuff. And so hopefully that happens.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Reagan.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Well, I'm gonna unmute everybody for just a minute so you can just like say hello to everybody if you want to. And then if nobody has any more questions, then we'll just kind of after a few minutes, go our own way. But thank you so much for coming to Munch and Learn. And thank you, Carrol, for doing this. It's been so, so nice.
I just want to say thanks to the Dixon, who has done such a great job of kind of providing content for the community while we're all stuck at home. So that's amazing. And then I appreciate everybody showing up today, right? The people I went to high school with, to students I taught, to fellow artists and fellow teachers, and I even see people I don't know. I particularly appreciate, I see family. So thank you for showing up today.
We love you, Carrol.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.